Welcome to The Miracle You, guiding you on the journey towards finding passion and purpose and how to discover, create, and live a life by your design. Whether your success has been plentiful or your missed opportunities have been overwhelming, we can help you become a more empowered, masterful person and show you how to share your gift with the world. It's time to inspire change from within with the host of The Miracle You, Vince Kramer.
Hello, imagination. I'm Vince Kramer, your host, and welcome to The Miracle You, where you learn about the magic of living your life by finding the example in real life. In our Imagine Miracles work, we talk a lot about the understanding of the concepts of energy, because each and every one of us, and truly everything in the universe, is energy. And where we try to assist people is in raising the vibration of them as energy to a place where they can create in the world what it is that they want, what it is that they're here to create. And in raising that vibration, the highest vibration emotionally that we can get to is joy. And today we're going to share with a true and the very first joyologist. This lady had an opportunity to tour with Patch Adams. For those of you who don't know who Patch Adams is, get the movie Patch Adams that starred Robin Williams and learn how this man brought joy, brought happiness, brought pranks into the hospitals that first of all he was an intern in, but then later that he created himself to really help the healing process. And in raising the vibration of his patients to that higher vibrational frequency, he was able to help them either cure themselves or help them in the curing process, or at least make their last days more soothing, more comfortable, and able to help each and every one of them be able to experience the end of their life in a way that was empowering to them. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope in it you find that your vibration is rising also. I'm with Pat Armitstead today. Pat is a pioneer and thought leader in the area of humor, engagement, and creativity. She has been described as New England's Patch Adams, or a spiritual midwife delivering people out of the darkness. Pat has had things happen in her life that many would have just quit or maybe even ended their lives. But rather than succumb to depression, she chose another path. That path led to her creating herself as the world's first joyologist. She is a multi-award-winning speaker who has toured internationally with Patch Adams. Over the last 17 years, she has amassed hundreds of stories as a result of getting present in her own life. Today, she shares her signature story and elements she believes are key to becoming a conscious and transformational leader and speaker. Pat Armitstead, are you ready to share the miracle of you with the imagination?
I sure am.
Excellent. It is so good to have you here. You know, the universe brings us all together in ways that we can't imagine. And I just know that you are supposed to be in my life. And I can't wait to learn more about you. I've done my research, but it's nothing like hearing it from someone in person and really getting the heart of the story. So, Pat, could you share a little bit more about you and what you do with the imagination? Your bio doesn't do you any credit at all in that.
I've actually searched for a long time to find somebody who can help me make that description, because it's not usual. Yeah, look, I wanted to be an artist when I left school, and my mother said to me, well, look, that's lovely, dear, but I really think you should get a proper job. And so by default, I ended up going nursing and nursed for 16 years. I loved it. And along that pathway, developed my compassionate self. And I didn't realise it at the time, but also developed my capacity to be calm in the face of huge adversity. Not necessarily mine, but other people's on that journey. And then at the end of that period, I was burnt out. I went on a 5-year working holiday around Australia, totally off the grid, did all kinds of things, special effects on a television program, managed a wildlife sanctuary, reared a wombat, homeschooled my son, and I learned to free fall in that 5 years. I would never have taken that journey on in my past thinking, and I just was really able to realise, for want of a better word, God's gotcha. We were never without work. We was phoned ahead. And, so we'll see you Monday. And it was that easy. And we're so provided for. So my son reached high school age and I thought, we better get back into the real world and didn't know what I wanted to do, and ended up with my own small video production company, which in 2.5 years became full broadcast standard studio. And it was here that I really found my full creative expression. There was just such capacity across the range to be doing so many varied things. And we also filmed for the news, 60 Minutes, 2020, those kind of programs. And so you had to be able to drop what you were doing and go and cover something. Really came together on that creative and very responsive front. And my partner and I were together 20 years, and we knew each other very intimately and very intuitively. So if we were doing joint coverage of an event, I would know if the event was doing that, then he would be doing that, and I needed to be doing this. And the business was called Take One because we committed we're never going back to do a second take. Right? So we're going to get it right first time. And so at the turn of the century, I had 4 years of losses. I lost my home and business twice, relocated to another country, owed $80,000, which I communicated my way out of. I could have perhaps declared bankruptcy, but I chose instead to just own. I'd created it, so I needed to uncreate. My bank manager wasn't happy, but he did say to me often, he said, we're not happy, Pat, but he said, I love how you have stayed on the page. You tell me you're going to ring every Friday and tell me what you're sending. And, when you go to that place where fear really can have you, because there's nothing like worrying about money, it's not there. You're in control. And so I reckon there's a book there, that 2 years in which I repaid that money. If we could save $40,000 a year, that'd be very useful for a lot of people to know how to do that. And these losses happened. I'd had cancer. I lost my first child, a daughter called Willow. My family hadn't spoken since 1989. And then my partner of 20 years found another woman and left. And, probably the biggest, I'm now very, very attached to language. His parting words to me, the last day we were together in the house, were, no, I don't love you, and I never loved you. And I thought in that moment, if that's true, then anything I've ever known is not true. And so I disintegrated. I was quite a mess for a time, and I had a wonderful doctor, and she wanted to medicate me. And I kept saying to her, help me deal with my grief. I forgot the 10 car accidents. In an 18-month period, I actually had 10 car accidents, about 6 weeks apart. Universe was definitely trying to tell me something. You got it? Oh, not yet. Okay. And anyway, back to the doctor, and I said to her, help me deal with my grief. And she didn't have an answer for that. So I went on a journey, and on this one particular day, 2 things happened. I sat next to a couple who had lost their 14-year-old son, and subsequently shared some of that journey with the father, whose pain I felt as if it were my own. I totally was in resonance with that. And then about 2 hours after that conversation with him, I had a conversation with a magician in South Australia. And it was in the middle of that conversation with him that the joyologist was born. It was just this lull. We'd been having a grand conversation, this little lull, little very comfortable gap, you know what that's like. And a message came through. It was, oh my God, we've got radiology, pathology and hematology, but no joyology. I'm going to be a joyologist.
How awesome. With all those things that happened to you, Pat, what do you think the message from the universe was?
I think I've been given a great gift to be fully self-expressed this lifetime, and I wasn't showing up to it in its full entirety. I had piecemeal done that, but we're taught a whole range of things, and that, marriage is forever, and there are all these kind of phrases that we take on as the truth, and they're not. Mm-hmm. Love is forever. Mm-hmm. I never stopped loving my partner, and it's that very thing really that sustained me moving forward, to know that even though he'd gone, I could love him anyway. And, I was extremely jealous of the other woman, insanely, I would phrase that. And I knew if I didn't get out of that space, I was going to be very ill. So, I committed, it was about a 3-month period where I just worked daily on myself to forgive her. And I reached a point where it was probably about 5% still to go, and I thought, oh, look, that's good enough. I'm good. But that let me keep the passageway open for my son and my ex to continue to have a relationship if they chose, because he was not my son's natural father. And that's probably been one of the biggest things through that passageway, to be totally responsible for holding myself, even though there was, pain and hurt at the rejection and abandonment and, disappointment.
Quite a few gifts in all of that, though, as, I'm reading what you're doing now and how you're bringing things into people's lives and the ability to know and understand that, and to know and understand that you were jealous and hurt so bad that you were getting sick is so important in all the work that you're doing. It's so powerful and so important that, that all came together to help you create who and what you are and what you're bringing to the world right now. That I just find so much power in that. So when the universe gave you the message of you should be expressing yourself fully, what would you say the mission is that you have right now, or what we call in Imagine Miracles, your divine intent to bring to the world? What do you think that mission is, and what are you sharing in that mission?
I believe we're here to bring joy, not just into our own lives, but into the lives of others, and that the very doing of that is actually not complex. And, when I reflect back to my early nursing days, I wasn't conscious then, but I was showing up in my natural, impish, good-humoured form and bringing joy to people who were certainly not in a good place. Nursed a lot of people who were moving through, difficult illness. And so I would show up, and sometimes I got into a lot of trouble all through my general nurse training. I was always in matron's office for tricks I got up to. But I really no one's life was ever put in jeopardy, and I showed up, but I didn't consciously know that then. One man, the first man that I ever bed bathed, He was in hospital for the whole 3 years of my general nurse training. He had 35 broken bones. And first of all, they said, he'll be vegetable. And then they said, he'll never walk. And he walked on 2 sticks to my graduation ceremony. And he had, at the end, he held up one of those sticks and he came forward and he said, I actually have something I'd like to say. And I was a bit scared at that point because my mother's sitting in the front row and I had a feeling where he was going to go. And he had this big scroll. It was about 3 feet long. And he just started reading off all the tricks and pranks and terrible things that I did to him over that time. And every now and again, my poor mother would go, oh, Patricia, you didn't. And when he was finished, he turned to me and he said, you don't know what you did. And I got that at one level at that time. But in 2001, at the height of all my other turmoil, that's when it really landed for me. Mm-hmm. You know, somewhere along this pathway, I have been to the level of my conscious ability, showing up in my full natural expression and done what no one else will do. I saw Bob Hall, that was that man with the 35 broken bones. I saw him every single day I was on duty, whether I was rostered on his floor or not. So he taught me, well, he called me in to commitment, to, you know, the enduring nature of relationship. And his being there invited, his being there in his terrible state, invited me. You know, I mean, a lot of what I did really broke the rules in terms of boundaries. However, it's like in relationship and in context, we can do that. Pat Adams shared with me once his mother is a diabetic and she lost one of her limbs as a result of poor circulation. And Patch was there as she came out of anaesthetic and he's patting her hand, and as her eyelids flooded open, he just leaned in and he said, well, Ma, now you know what it's like to have one foot in the grave. Okay? But only Patch could say that to his mother.
I'm sure.
Because he's got relationship and there's context for who he is in the world.
For the imagination, if you haven't seen the movie Patch Adams, I highly recommend that you go out and see the movie, bring it in, see it on Netflix or whatever. Robin Williams does an amazing job of reflecting what I have read about Patch, and Pat, you know him, so that's pretty exciting. But I really want to say, hearing this story here, you are a Patch Adams. I mean, you push the boundaries just the same way.
Yes. And, you know, that when I toured with Patch, before the tour, I had spoken to him a number of times, and I remember one conversation, exact words. He said, Pat, don't come because of me. Come because you want to find and spend your clown self. Come because you want to experience for yourself the true disparity between rich and poor. Come because you'd like to make at least one Russian friend. And, you know, there were no instructions on the tour. We got a little badge that said no whining. So he didn't care if you didn't like your room or if you didn't like the food or you didn't like your roommate. It was a much bigger journey. And I learned, we were all in clown persona, and I really learned over the first 3 or 4 days, like I'm a makeup artist, so I had great faces, but I learned very quickly that all I needed was my nose and a couple of dots. I had a puppet, and the puppet was my alter ego, Doubting Thomas. And so Doubting Thomas became the intermediary for me and orphan children. So 16 days in the moment, and I returned from that tour feeling more vital and alive than I've ever felt in my whole life. And that's because I was present to it all. You know, we experienced some really sad moments and some really glad ones. So just this curious mix of extremes, and poverty, the likes of which I hadn't seen. And, you know, it shaped It just affirmed everything that had happened in the preceding 2 or 3 years, and it shaped everything for me. And the other thing that I want to share is about 3 months after my ex left, I lost the pigment out of my skin, both forearms up to the elbow, and a butterfly shape on my chest. And in the movie Pat Adams, when his girlfriend is shot, he takes his battered old briefcase and goes and stands on the hill and looks out over where he's going to build Gesundheit. And a monarch, and this is true, he confirmed this for me, a monarch lands on the briefcase and then came up and landed on his chest. So that morning when I see my white hands and this butterfly shape on my chest, that was my first thought, Pat Adams. So it was, about 2 years later, I end up touring with Pat. And in that intervening 2 years, I did a pilot program in an aged care facility, and one of the daughters of one of the residents used to each week give me cards, and she called me Pat Armitstead. So, reflecting, it's like there was this huge teasing and guidance, giving me the breadcrumbs, to follow.
One of the things, Pat, that we teach in our programs is that you are living your purpose your entire life. Every job, every circumstance in your life has your purpose in it. You're just refining it, developing your talents and gifts. So it's very obvious where you found the humor and the joy. Truly, joy is your divine intent in the nursing program. And in what you're doing now, it's very obvious how you're bringing joy and humor to the world. Tell me how that stint in the middle there, where you were a journalist and when you had the video company, where did you find your ability and your possibilities of bringing joy there?
Well, number one, I continued I was on a couple of hospital boards. I was on a couple of charities. So still maintained that connection with the health sector of the community. But in terms of my own personal, expression within that role, I wasn't a business person. I'd been a nurse. However, there was something I was really driven. I made a 5-year plan and we achieved it in 2.5 to become full broadcast standard. I made a business plan that looked like this and took it to the bank and said, can you help us grow the business?
For those of you that can't see, because we're not a video here, Pat showed a business plan that was about 3 inches long.
And, as we just unfolded, there was like increasing steps to step up. I began filming domestic things, then weddings, then special events. And then there was an opportunity to become a freelance journalist and camera person for the news, and I thought, onto it. So failed at that about 8 times, had to repeatedly submit over time, so get their feedback and learn, and eventually became in that position. They call it a stringer here in Australia for all the networks, or for one network in the beginning, and then the next year just totally went freelance. And it was like dancing with the stars. Like some days you were just doing something fairly ordinary, running off 100 tape copies and filming a fairly boring politician. But other days we'd be in the thick or thin of crime. We managed to walk in and on bank robberies and film the bandit and explored poverty, people sleeping under bridges, homeless. So there was just this total landscape of what people's lives were like. And I entered the Tourism Awards, I forget what year it was, 1997, I think, and had 12 months to plan. And I thought, all right, I want to win this. So the first thing I did was I wrote the speech I would give on the night, and then I did a backward plan for 12 months. And it's really hard for most people to be steadfast, hold themselves in that position and commit every day. That's, the biggest task I think any of us have. And I thought, well, this is all very clever, Pat, but how are you going to stay on the page? How are you going to stay in the groove? And so I asked myself one question. And the question was, how does what I'm doing right now link to tourism? So, and if there's an answer, if you ask that question, and you can always find an answer. And I won. And we didn't actually get awarded logies, but I made his and her logies for us, for my ex and I. And really it was the culmination of, this. I was really filled up in what nursing had filled me in a different way. I had been serving, and this creative input and output, because it was a huge flow, was actually serving me. I was alive. And, I became really sharp because you had to be thinking on your feet. We both could film. So we could, as a duo, we could do what other news people couldn't do because one could drive the car and the other would be filming. So we would get magnificent footage of car chases and those kinds of things.
You said something very, very important that I want to make sure everybody heard, because you didn't come right out and say it, but in you being filled up, it was because you were fulfilling and filling lives around you is where you got filled up. It's not that we find a way to fill ourselves first and then we give it out and we give it away. It's we give away and that fills us up. And that was so powerful. Once again, what you said, I know I'm using powerful a lot in our interview, but it's so very true. You're bringing concepts to light here that's so important for people to see and to hear. So I want to thank you for that. So what's the next step in bringing joy to the world? Is there something in your planning schedule or on the drawing board that you've got coming up?
Yes. In 2004, I made a 20-year plan, and my vision for 2020 is that we will be having an intimacy revolution. I've seen the unfolding of that along the way. I remember in 2006 working with a business in New Zealand, and they were having a client intimacy program, an initiative over a 5-year period, and we met and they engaged me to support that process. And they kind of heralded, oh my goodness, it's only 2 years ago I wrote that down as something down the track. And here's one business, very astute law firm, and they're doing this, they're willing to go deep and create a platform over time. You need to allow that time. So what does it look like, the intimacy revolution? I think it's already in place, and I think there's a level of further daring that's required of me because I mentioned earlier, I've been plagued by doubt all my life. So, yes, I've crafted all these extraordinary things, but in the background has been this alter ego that truly is the epitome of doubting Thomas. However, I've harnessed that. It's like when you recognise your default setting, that's what I sometimes call it, and you become conscious, then you're aware. So I make fun of myself sometimes. It's like, oh, where do you think you're going? Slipping over there. And the performing arts helped me get to that place. I learned improv acting and been studying that since 2001, but intensively for the first 4 years. And through improv, I helped improv. The first rule of improv is that first thought is correct. So we come from, I better not say that. If I say that, somebody will get upset. So I better say this, or maybe not even that because they mightn't like that either, so I'll say this. So we become so far from the truth of what we want to express. That it's not a lie, but it's not the true essence. So improv helps you get rid of that, the censor. Mm-hmm. So that you're free. And that's, all the improv performances that you see on television, whose line is it anyway? Their gift, they're connected to each other, right? If they stand in a row and they're doing, a performance that requires them to, follow one after the other, rhyming verse or something, the gift of what they're doing is just come through. They're present to who's in the room. Mm-hmm. Really present. So that was what I learned. I studied avidly for a few years, storytelling, clowning, never did learn to juggle. It wasn't about that. And, I've done a lot of street theatre. So in those moving statue kind of interpretations, now for me, 30 seconds to a minute, and I'm in a deeply meditative state. So it's brought me so many things that I had no idea that was going to come. And it's just shown me I have a saying, we can't all live a life in the performing arts, but we can live a life in hands-on.
Oh, that's for sure. That's for sure. Believe it or not, Pat, the time has just kind of slipped away here. We've just got a few minutes. Could you give a piece of parting guidance that you want to share with the audience?
I think I've worked very intuitively, and I've had the courage to break the rules. In 2000, or around about the year 2000, I started sending what I call glad mail, and over a 2-year period, I sent 2,000 pieces of mail to a student body that I was working with, and saw the extraordinary change that came as a result of them receiving that mail. So when I left that company, I committed, I'm going to send 3 pieces every day. So in the intervening years, I've sent about 17,000 pieces of glad mail. Now it's typically 3 cards a day. I give it 3 cards out when I do a presentation, and it's all it's all front of mind. It's all just stream of consciousness. I write it the night before, asking what do people need to hear from me. And that practice has never let me down. People come and say, how did you know? How did you know I needed to hear this? So, the things, have trust and faith in what's coming up for you and what you feel you want to say, or what's coming through your mind, what's coming through your heart and your gut, and respond to that. Listen to it and work with it.
What great advice. Pat, could you tell the audience how they can get in touch with you?
Yes, I still have my New Zealand website, www.joyology.co.nz, and I'm in Australia now, living there. So it's probably the best way.
Excellent. And I've got a few other ways that you can contact Pat, and I'll put that all in the show page so you have that available to you. Remember, it's themiracleu.com, and just look for Pat Armitstead's show page, and all that information will be available. Pat, I'm actually so sorry that my podcast is so short. I wish I had some more time to chat and to go a little bit deeper. As a matter of fact, I'm going to extend an offer to maybe come back in a couple months or so we can have another chat. Would that be good?
That'd be wonderful. We can talk about the intimacy.
Excellent.
Revolution.
That sounds great. As a matter of fact, that might be perfect timing a couple months down the road. So thank you so much for getting up so early in the morning to be with us. We truly appreciate having you here and sharing the divine intent of joy. My divine intent is to help raise the vibration of the world, and in my experience, in my opinion, you don't get any higher of a vibration than joy. So I think we have the same mission. We just express it in a little different way.
Yes, exactly.
On behalf of my wife and business partner, Mary, we want to wish everyone a very miracle day.
You've completed this episode of The Miracle You, but we have plenty more to help you discover your own personal passion and purpose. Head over to themiracleyou.com for free resources to assist you on your journey, as well as register for our free webinar, Discover Your Miracle Life, 3 mind-awakening steps toward your unique purpose, or apply for a one-on-one Your Life, Your Way breakthrough session and discover your next best step on your journey. All available exclusively on our website. That's themiracleyou.com. We look forward to sharing more experiences of passion, purpose, and life by design next time, right here on The Miracle You.